When I entered the industry, I realized that India is still not there. We're still basically mass producing products that we have adopted from the West or from other markets. There's hardly any scope for R&D, and engineers are shop floor managers. And that's not really where I wanted to be. Why don't you do an accounting 101 class? Why don't you go and actually do finance? So that required me to pivot from engineering into finance and accounts, something I never thought I'll ever do, and which has helped me obviously move on to the next chapter of life, which is really getting deep down into mergers and acquisitions, financial services, banking, corporate finance, and other such allied services, which is what has accelerated my journey till today. Karmanne devarastu mahaphaleshu kadachana. Do your deed and leave the rest to the bigger forces of life. And the one word for that in Latin is Nisus. I'm one person, when I see an opportunity, I use all my hands, feet, teeth to grab it with the largest possible force.
Hello everybody, I'm your host Rupali Sapkal. Gives me an immense pleasure to welcome all the viewers to our show. And today we are joined by a leader who has significantly shaped India's structured real estate capital ecosystem. It's definitely a pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Amit Goenka, founder, chairman and managing director of Nisus Finance Services Co Limited. With over 25 years of experience, Amit ji founded Nisus Finance in 2013 and has grown it to over 1900 crore in AUM with more than 500 million successfully managed and, of course, exited in structured credit investments. Under his leadership, the firm became India's first publicly listed fund manager on the BSE platform. Previously, he was also the founder, MD and CEO of SL Finance, part of the Z Entertainment Enterprises Group, where he managed a 750 crore real estate fund portfolio. It is such a great honor to have Amit ji here with us today. A very warm welcome to you, Amit ji.
Thank you, Rupali.
I totally want to understand that how it all started for you.
Well, it's a culmination of, I think, God's will, elders' blessings, and a clear sight on where the differentiation can be created within the Indian landscape. When you start, you really don't know where you're going to go, but you really know that I don't want to take the trodden path. So one thing was very clear to me, Rupari, that needed to create a differentiation within the Indian ecosystem and financial services landscape. And really, that's really how the journey has been from coast to coast and finally culminating into the creation of Nisus Finance.
Oh, wow, lovely. So, Amit ji, like you started as an engineer, right? And that too from Mumbai University before pivoting to finance, looking back. I mean, was that a deliberate plan or did life simply take you to that direction?
You know, it's funny because when I was looking to do engineering, the endeavor was to create a technological powerhouse. I always believed that India would be built because of its capabilities in technology, R&D, and creating differentiated products which are made in India.
Yeah.
But then this was a dreamy young engineer back in 1995, 96, without any iota of reality. So when I entered the industry, I realized that India is still not there. We're still basically mass producing products that we have adopted from the West or from other markets. There's hardly any scope for R&D, and engineers are shop floor managers. And that's not really where I wanted to be. So when I started to develop something, the management said, but I think this product looks good, but what is the payback period? What is the IRR? What is the capex required? I said, excuse me, I didn't study these terms in engineering. So they said, well, why don't you do an accounting 101 class? I said, instead of doing an accounting 101 class, why don't you go and actually do finance? So that required me to pivot from engineering into finance and accounts, something I never thought I'll ever do. But, well, I said, okay, let's start this journey of understanding finance and accounts. And that's really when I got deep dived into understanding the subject in a very, very deep manner, and which has helped me obviously move on to the next chapter of life, which was really getting deep down into mergers and acquisitions, financial services, banking, corporate finance, and other such allied services, which is what has accelerated my journey till today.
Wow, that's amazing. So, like we all know now, in 2013, this journey started. What were the challenges you faced back then?
Well, India has been quite resilient that way. So when I was running a fund in the Middle East, and we were facing effectively the 2007-8 global financial crisis. The entire world order in finance changed. The entire banking and credit landscape changed in a very large way. A number of banks and financial institutions fell overnight. And that was quite a tectonic shift in terms of how the new world order on finance will look like. It also required a deeper understanding of what is more resilient and capital protected, because there was a huge amount of loss globally in terms of capital. And that was something which I didn't want to be a part of going forward. So coming back to India, I realized that the one way to do things is to actually create a credit solution. India did not have a private credit market back then. We basically had banks, there were hardly any NBFCs, or there was private equity. So we started to create the first private credit papers in India, which were backed by hard assets, cash flows. And I always knew that Indian real estate is a very resilient asset class. Fortunately, because of the large demographic profile and the consumption, I don't see the possibility of people losing money if it's well structured and credit backed and downside protected. Because valuations in India don't come off in real estate. Unlike in the West, where something which is selling for $3,000 can fall to $1,000 and go back up to $4,000. So a lot of volatility in pricing in global markets, but India has not seen that. We're sitting today, Rupali, in Juhu, and maybe Juhu is selling at 2 lakh rupees a square foot. What is the possibility it'll fall to 50,000? I don't think that'll ever be seen in our lifetime.
Absolutely.
So either it'll stay flat or go up. And I think that's one of the most defensive markets, therefore. And if it was selling for 50,000, you and I would be buying all day long, right? So exactly. So, but that does not happen in global markets. So when markets fall, they fall, and there are no buyers, irrespective of price. So really, creating the credit solution was a very interesting idea. We structured that first product, also created the first sort of REIT-styled yielding asset, because whenever market falls, this gives you a huge opportunity to buy assets for a deep discount, and therefore you get very significant yields on that. So we created these portfolios, and that's really what accelerated my journey moving forward. In 2013, I decided it's time for me to be fully entrepreneurial and do what I really love, and create it in a style and manner which I truly believe in, without getting diluted or compromised because of larger organizational either railguards or global idiosyncrasies.
Yes. And I'm sure when you do something which you have your expertise and then experience, of course, and passionate about, it definitely has to work in your favor. And also, like, you kept the name as Nisus. So what was the thought process? Where does this name come from?
Yeah, it was a 3-month exercise in my mind of going through thousands of ideas and names, and I said, what has really been a constant in my life has been hard work, has been endeavor, has been being at it, digging deep, and not really worrying about how much money we ended up making, or whether it was we were number one in a short period of time or not, but being at it, and then that's constant endeavor was a very important part of my life. And therefore, I was looking at various things, and I came across the Gita verse, which is Karmanya Devarastu Mafaleshu Kadachana. You do your deed and leave the rest to the bigger forces of life. And and the one word for that in Latin is Nisus. So I said, well, this makes sense, So I'm starting afresh. It's a new phase again in my life, after having been in multiple jobs or in being in a semi-entrepreneur role. And so all I can do is again try. And that's when Nisus was born.
Wow. I mean, what a story, I must say, that again 3 months and you were so sure that this is what you want, connected to the roots. Lovely. And when we talk about the career journey, of course, the graph from Z Group to Knight Frank to a 4 billion Islamic fund. So how was that experience, and how did it go through for you?
So the endeavor was always to learn all aspects of finance, having been in finance. But what was also very interesting, Pali, is that when I did my MBA and certifications in and masters in finance, and I started getting into M&A, either Birla Group or with Ernst & Young and valuations, and that gave me a very deep understanding of industry as a whole, both domestically and globally, because Birlas were acquiring globally.
Yes.
And global M&A was a fantastic experience. Even EY was a fantastic experience. So it taught me very deep nuances of finance. But I was not on the private equity side. So when I got the opportunity to be on private equity and learn Islamic finance, because it is a big space,
Yes.
and that is something I wouldn't learn in India, I decided to go overseas and work in the Middle East and be part of a large Islamic fund, which is a buyout. And that was a phenomenal opportunity, because it allowed me to actually see how actually global assets using Islamic finance are bought, how you do complete buyouts, and investing a very large sum of money in a very short period of time becomes a very intense exercise. Also, what was interesting is this is the pre-2007 era, where oil money was splashing all around, and there was no price at which you could not buy. Everything was being bought at whatever price you wanted. Trophy asset was on the boom. And so when you buy part of a trophy asset buying spree, it gives you a lot of deep insights. You understand banking, credit, global regulations. You become a lawyer in a very deep way, because you're doing such a large amount of M&A using structured finance or Islamic finance. You start understanding deal making in a very big way, because again you're negotiating with multiple parties at the same time. So it was a very intense experience, and I'm very grateful for that. But then coming back, I realized that if I really want to go to the next phase of life and not just be an analyst, then I need to be able to sell. And that's something which I really hated. My father was a salesman. I used to hate seeing him wait for hours to meet the client. I said, this is non-intellectual. And I was stand corrected now, of course. I realized that the only way you can actually move to the next phase if you can sell, if you can market. And I didn't really have that skill then, because I was very interested in actually building models or building something. That engineering twang was still there. And I said, well, I've got to leave that entire experience and mindset aside and just be on the street and sell. And so that's really when I decided to pick up the night rank role, because it was a complete salesman's job.
Wow.
And lead a decently large organization with hundreds of people working for us. And remember, which is coming out of 2008 global financial crisis, which means that for the first time I had to lay off people. And it was the most heart-wrenching exercise of my life, because you have young couples, young folks, just married, recent mortgages, and you do not know how to help them. So the organization had to obviously cut flat. And I said, this is never going to happen again in my life. So I'm going to, whenever I do something on my own, I'm going to recruit smart and ensure that the organization always have place for its people, irrespective of whatever we go through. So a lot of deep experiences there. Learned how to actually create products, market them, sell them, create opportunities for clients, and multiple asset classes. Also, one of the thoughts at that time also was that let me focus on one single sector, having done automobiles, chemicals, industrial, hospitality, a bunch of asset classes globally. I said the time is to focus on one sector and become the best at it. So bolte na andho mein kana raja. I said, let me, and now I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I can be maybe the smartest in a sector, because there are not so smart people who decided to go to the sector yet. So technology was attracting the biggest talent. It was a very competitive space. And no problem with competition. But then how do you create a large delta in a space? How do you create a large differentiating quotient? And so I said, let me get into real estate, because it is very unorganized. People don't generally go there as professionals. It's run by a lot of mom and pop guys, or even people who haven't really decided to even give education a pass and go into directly figuring out a way to buy land and construct something or sell something. So I said, there is a point in time where this will institutionalize. And 2005 FDI press note clearly laid that path, because it allowed foreign capital to actually start getting invested in India. I said that will be a big game changer, because the moment global capital walks in, it will enforce its ethos, its regulations, its requirements, its processes, and that will start transforming the country and the real estate urban infrastructure space very fast. And that eventually did happen. Of course, the 2008 financial crisis was a bit of a comma rather than a full stop for the sector, which is great, because everywhere it was a big full stop, and it remained like that for a long period of time. But we paused for a minute, and the market started to consolidate a bit. And that's when we were able to start actually doing credit solutions, because there was so much free equity available prior to that that nobody really even wanted debt. And that stopped. right? The global investors went away. And they said, now where do we get capital? So I said, let's do structured credit. We have enough money in the country. Likewise, there are a lot of assets where people said, let's go into more stable asset classes because there has been obviously destruction in value. So therefore, rental yield made a lot of sense. And interest rates had dropped, so therefore the yield was very, very attractive. So that really created these two products. And I said, well, if you can still create products, you can make it available in the country and explain to the audiences that why this makes sense. So it was a fantastic experience to be able to actually learn marketing, sell, and ensure that we grew ourselves in the next 3-4 years before SL Finance happened, or before eventually we decided to go fully entrepreneurial.
So probably you had to take like certain bolder steps in order to be where you are today. So I mean, like we always say, just not the nicest people create history. It's the bolder people who does. I think you're one of the best examples that we have today. So the time you were put in a spot to take bolder decisions, did you have any second thoughts, or it was just, okay, let's do it? That was the attitude you had.
See, I've always believed that the only way to move ahead is to fight your way through it. I've never believed in standing in a queue and waiting for my turn. And that's one of my weaknesses also, but it's also in some ways a strength. So, when you get into a consulting role, which requires sales and marketing, again, there are templates on what is it that you need to do. And I said, this template is not going to work forever. We have to do something which is far more predictable. What happens in a transactional environment, or in a broking environment, or in an advisory environment, is that your cash flow volatility will be depending upon the economic cycle, the industry's need to actually deal with you.
Yes.
And that which means that you can't really predict how much money you're going to make in a year. When the markets are good, you're going to sell more, you're going to do more, you're going to earn more, and you're going to sustain the organization. But what happens when the markets aren't great? And I said, that is not going to help. So we need to obviously disrupt this. And I said, let's create a fund. Now, that was something which was shocking to an organization like Knight Frank, because they said, that's not in our DNA. We don't do this. We don't do this anyway. I said, but so what? That's not an answer. So it took me a lot of effort and time to actually make a case, present it to the management, to the board, to the partnership in London, and say, can we become advisors to a fund structure? Can we go out and actually create a new product, where I see a huge opportunity? Can we also get into infra-led assets? Because it was at that time that the National Solar Mission was announced. And there were a lot of people interested in actually getting into green energy. There was zero capacity when it came to renewable energy, barring wind, which of course, they've done really well. But there was hardly anything when it came to solar energy, because there was no policy. And then the National Solar Mission came. I said, let's start helping those people only. Why just do, real estate when it comes to offices or residences or malls or whatever? We can also do infra, because that's a big play. And India will need a large amount of infra when it comes to energy, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to roads, ports, tolls, etc. And we understand asset class because finally it's hard asset. And when you understand hard asset, you can expand your horizon even beyond where you've traditionally done business, because when you come from a developed economy, these asset classes do not come into your horizon. It's not necessary. The government has already done its job. Now the government is starting to do its job. And therefore, we need to be part of that story as well. Fortunately, the organization was very accommodative to my whims and fancies. And they said, well, if you can go ahead and do it, do it. And so for the first time in India, our company started to actually, start advising on a fund structure. We did very well when it came to that $50 million target yielding portfolio. It was the first REIT-styled asset in the world, in India, copied from Singapore, because we didn't have REIT regulations back then. So I said, how are we going to even model this? So I said, let's effectively take the best regulation in the world, which is the Singapore REIT, and apply it in India, because more than the opportunity, the governance, the regulations, and the integrity of the product must be at the core.
Yes.
And that's really when you need to take the best regulations in the world and apply it to our country. And that's what we did. And that's why we did very well when it came to actually buying these assets, creating a high-yielding portfolio. Same way when we started doing structured credit, because I'd seen how mortgage securities globally had created a havoc in the financial crisis. So when it came to either RMBS or CMBS, which is commercial mortgage-backed securities, I said you can actually do great securitization in the country, because in our country, everybody is buying a home using mortgages. And that's very unique, by the way. It doesn't happen in any other part of the world. most people are not allowed to buy under construction or even sell under construction. You can only buy ready homes.
Yes.
You can get a mortgage when you buy a ready home. Banks do not lend if you want to buy something under construction.
Okay, I mean,
That doesn't happen even in the UAE, by the way.
wow.
Everybody's selling that 1% plan because you cannot get a home loan when you're buying a house in the UAE.
Oh.
Which is why you need to pay a 1% plan, which means the developer is giving you the ability to pay over a period of time.
And as soon as the construction is done,
When
that's
it
when
is-
the bank...
exactly. That's when the bank will come in.
Because they need a proper like documentation and
Exactly.
everything,
They need a
concrete
proper
property
bill security,
existing.
and they do not want to take incompletion risk. But India has far more progressive because it allows the Indian citizens to actually buy during construction. I said that basically means that the bank is willing to pay. And if the bank is willing to pay, then that's a very strong income stream because the bank is not going to default when you call on the money because they already sanctioned to a particular buyer. And all if you did is securitize that, you can have a very strong product. And that's what we started to do in 2008, and that's really became the bedrock of our creation over the last 17, 18 years, Rupali. And so that continued as one of the bigger models to be able to finance an underdevelopment project where you necessarily need not have to go to a bank or need not wait in queue for some lender to come through because you could create a product which was suited to that particular project or asset class. So clearly, having to disrupt means you're going to have to fight mindsets, find the standard, this is the way to do it attitude. And see whether there are alternate ways to do something better and keep on reinventing the same asset class multiple times. And so that's what I've enjoyed the most. And of course, when you take a bold decision, it does not sit well with a lot of people. And you need to either continue to work at it or finally decide to do it on your own.
True.
And that's eventually what happened.
Exactly. I mean, because I'm sure you might have faced a lot of challenges, people not really agreeing to, and then finally you setting an example, front of all of them. Lovely. And also before Nisus, you founded and led SL Finance inside the 7 billion ZTV group. Can you shed some light on that?
So that was my first sort of go entrepreneurial journey. And, I was fortunate to be backed by a large media group who said, if you want to do it on your own, we're happy to support it. And that's where SL Finance was born. It was a garage startup. Figuring out how to create the organization, what people to bring in, how to create a completely new financial services powerhouse, to what products, to what kind of delivery, distribution, capitalization, creating a board, an investment committee. And at that time, fortunately, SEBI came out with its alternate investment fund regulations in 2011-12. And so we're the first people to actually get an AIF license in the country. And that was one of the game changers for alternate asset classes because there were no clear regulations, So either you used a PMS license to do investments in the country, which is a portfolio management, or there were venture capital fund regulations, which were very, very inefficient. So when the first time an AIF regulation came, I said, this is it. This is exactly what we need. Wow. And we were fortunate enough to actually be one of the first guys to get an AIF license and accelerate a alternate fund. Of course, again, then when a new regulation comes, like when a REIT came, you need to obviously explain first the product or the regulation before you explain what is it that you want to do with the money. Because people are skeptical, will this work? How does it work? What is the tax incidence? Will I get stuck? And stuff like that. So, we are again very fortunate that we got the license, we were able to take the first AIF fund to the market. We got great amount of support from our investors who'd seen how it performed in our previous funds while I was at Knight Frank and otherwise. And therefore, that first live or a faith came in, we got further distributed and we raised the first fund and the second fund and started to do really well. But what it taught me was the ability to actually create everything from scratch.
Yes.
So while I've been in semi-entrepreneurial engagements or something which required me to actually create something, including at Knight Frank, this was entirely from scratch. It was like trying to conceive how you're going to even go ahead and actually, make your family.
Wow.
Who you're going to marry, who you're going to, when you're going to have your kids, when you're going to actually grow up. And it was just creating this entire roadmap. It's very interesting. Because it was backed by a large group, obviously we got a lot of support from the market, we got distributed.
And what about the pressure? Did you have a lot of pressure as well then?
Well, if I don't have pressure, I can't sleep well. So yeah, I've always thrived under pressure, and which is why I've always been part of entrepreneurial or demanding environments or jobs. So yeah, it was fun to create something from scratch, build it into a very meaningful and large organization, and that taught me what not to do also in entrepreneurship.
True.
Trying to do too many things at the same time. That can be difficult because you got to
True.
focus on a few things and make it large enough before you move to the other thing. So yeah, it was a great experience, and it also created a good recall for me as a business person, not
Okay.
just as a financial or a real estate professional, which I obviously got in the previous assignment, but beyond that, it at least started recognizing me as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as the managing director and chairman of a large platform. So from being a director to being a chairman or a managing director of a large platform itself was a very interesting journey, and it was large enough for it to get meaningful traction in the marketplace. And so that gave me a lot of exposure to a very large amount of industry ecosystem, which is beyond real estate. So whether it's CII or FICCI or other industry bodies were very keen to invite me or understand what I'm up to and why I'm building a financial services powerhouse from scratch and being part of various campuses and stuff like that. So that expanded my horizon to what helped me really set up Nisus.
So I would like to know about the Nisus Finance BSE listing journey. First of all, congratulations,
Thank
because
you.
it's a huge thing being public. Why did you choose being public rather than being private?
So in 2013, we couldn't have imagined what will happen 10 or 11 years later, Rupali, that will be a public listed company. But again, life takes you into journeys and opportunities. And I'm one person, when I see an opportunity, I use all my hands, feet, teeth to grab it with the largest possible force. Because that's how you've built yourself. It's never things have been on a platter. I've seen very, very hard times. In fact, when I was doing my MBA in the US, I was part of the graduation class that saw 9/11. And I went to a university where there was 99.99% jobs, but when I was graduating, there were zero jobs because 9/11 happened, and nobody wanted a brown skin or a yellow skin to have a job in the US. Likewise, when I was at the peak of my financial career, GFC and 2007-8 crisis happened, and again you have to start from scratch. So whenever I see an opportunity, obviously go with it with full force. So when we started to build this organization, there was obviously a disdain or a question mark about the relevance of our organization because it was a big boys game. You had very large banks, financial institutions, foreign funds who are obviously putting billions of dollars to work. And as a startup with 50, 100, 200 crores of maybe capital that you'll try and invest with a few developers, is it even relevant? Is it even meaningful? And I said, well, you know what? This is at least going to set the template of how to do things right, not necessarily how to do things in the biggest of ways. Because the way things are working, everybody seems to be working on a very high adrenal dose and putting out money like there's no tomorrow. And everybody's getting fistful of money for having done nothing in their lives. I said, this is eventually going to settle down and things are going to get ugly before they get better. And that's exactly what happened. And then 2016 ILFS happened, followed by the IBC, where a lot of people went under insolvency, followed by several other NBFC and bank failures, followed by the biggest surgical strike of demonetization, where all of these people who were not knowing how to deal in the right manner got left on the wayside. And then GST, where everything had to be disclosed. So in a series of these tectonic, life-changing events, that's when the industry started to shake and become more regimented and more regulated, and RERA came into being. And I said, now's our time. This is exactly what we were waiting for. This is how we've done our business, and everybody will be forced to do their business because people have lost tons of money in not having done things the right way, of not having created discipline in their investment or deployment or capital utilization journeys. And that's not going to happen anymore. And therefore, people who actually demonstrated, even if in a small way, that how to actually use capital sensibly and create a very defensive outcome with even high returns, that's exactly where the gravity will be. And then we were right, and that's exactly what started to happen. And then the biggest game changer, to be honest, even beyond that, was actually COVID. Because what regulations did was obviously create a framework of how the world will work with India and how India will deal with its asset classes within real estate. But what it still didn't do was completely weed out the unworthy, the feeble, the weak. And COVID did that. It rooted people out who were not able to sustain themselves for 2 years. And we did. we were operating throughout COVID. I did not actually even go home. I was there all the time in office, got special approvals to keep office open, incentivize people to staying close by, that please come. We're a lender. We need to be there. I'm willing to pay what it takes to ensure that we work 24/7, because we need to obviously ensure projects work on time. The laborers get paid on time, because the plight that we saw of laborers trying to go home was heart-wrenching. And I said, if we don't disburse to our projects in time, irrespective of how we are feeling about it, there will be a lot more calamity. So we said, we need to be in office. We need to ensure our disbursements go out. The projects get the money, the labor gets paid, the vendors get paid. And so we did that, and that was a fantastic turning point. And that really sort of created what we are seeing today as mass institutionalization or consolidation in a big way. 12,000 developers, Rupali, prior to that. Today, hardly 4,000. Such a huge amount of culling of unworthy people. 52 institutions who were investing or lending. Today, less than 15. So that kind of consolidation was huge for us, because when you have the largest lenders, whether it was DHFL, whether it was ILFS, and now, strangely, even when HDFC Bank, acquired HDFC Limited, and HDFC Limited was the largest real estate lender in India. And suddenly the biggest boy has also left the room. So what happens? The small guy starts to look very large. And that's really what was happening for us. We were starting to get a huge amount of demand for capital. We were also getting a lot of people wanting to invest with us, saying, oh, you've done really well. You know how to do this job. And then now who else do I work with? I need my capital to actually do well with real estate. I said, well, now you have money on one side. You've got demand on the other side. We should develop the capability to expand our house to be able to do this kind of volume. And so that will not happen without capital. You can't depend only on profits to grow 10 times overnight. You'll have to raise money. What my peers have usually done is done private equity deals. They've gone out and taken money from a global fund or a domestic institution and used that capital to actually grow. But for me, that was not value accretive, because we're not a startup. We're looking for a VC or a PE round. We've been around for now almost 10, 11 years.
Yes.
And I don't think we were the right candidate for a PE or VC who would tell us how to do again our business, what to do, what not to do, what to launch. I said, I didn't set this up for somebody else to tell me, because they gave me some money, having spent 20 years in the industry, how to do my job. And I said, that therefore won't work. Fortunately, the capital markets are doing extremely well. And I felt that is the best way to unlock value for everyone. One, for me and my family, who's seen huge downturns because of my zid to do entrepreneurship. Very, very depressing time, because when you leave a very high paying job,
yes,
and you have no money to give, and then you've taken all that money, put into your business, and you have nothing to give back to your family to feed themselves, that's the sacrifice they've paid. I said, they need to also get rewarded.
Yes.
And private equity is not going to reward my family for the pain. They're going to only reward themselves, because I've been a PA, I know how to suck others' blood, and they're going to suck my blood.
Yes.
So I said, private equity is not going to do it for me. And capital markets will appreciate the growth story, because markets are efficient. They know how to price growth. They know how to price risk. They know how to price an entrepreneur's capability to actually build and grow organizations. And I felt that was therefore the best time to actually go and start looking at the market as a next phase for growth. And we're fortunate that we hit the market at the right time. We were 192 times oversubscribed, completely inorganic, organic growth for us. And I thought that was a big blessing, or a big thumbs up that, go boy, you can do it.
Wow, I mean, the journey has been incredible as I'm listening to you. And you mentioned that, you were in a spot, you had to take that call. You've exited like really huge organizations, because it's been your hallmark, right? You've managed and exited over 500 million in real estate structured credit. And I think recently exiting Skytech Estates, so with a 1.5 MOIC. I mean, could you share some information about that?
So, what happened was when I was looking back when we were starting this journey, I saw that there is certainly an opportunity when it comes to India urbanization. Everybody knows that. We're creating 50 cities today. Our Prime Minister has set up, and this was of course prior to that vision being announced, has set up the 2047 Viksit Bharat story. Yes. Which means the pace of urbanization will now be at 2 times or 3 times the pace at which we've seen it so far, which means that India will grow from a 38% urbanization to 52-53% urbanization, which means 60 to 70 crore Indians will be living in cities. Now that story people understand, and they do agree that there is an opportunity to invest. The problem with that has been that in the first phase of capitalization for the sector after the 2005 era, almost 12, $13 billion came in the country, chasing townships, SEZs, malls, hotels, because of this underpinning of the economy. But nobody could take their money out. They couldn't exit. And when you can't take your money out, you've invested, then it's lost. Because you never know when you're going to get it. You never know what it's going to be when you, even if you get it, whether you even get your entire principal back or not. And remember, for dollar investor, they're actually running a negative burn because the dollar is appreciating and the rupee is depreciating every year. Which means with each passing year, they're losing at least 4 to 5% of their capital. Which means if you're not growing fast enough, and then they're losing on tax as well. So now if you're not growing faster than 10 to 15% on their money every year, then they're going to eventually end up losing it.
Yes.
And that's what happened. A lot of global investors took a haircut or even left all their money and went away. That was a very painful experience because that destroys the confidence and the capability for global capital to play the asset class. I said the only thing that can change is if you can premeditate and predetermine exits. If I can guarantee you, I will take your money on 1st of April 2026, Rupali, and I will return it to you on 31st December 2027, come what may, and give you 20% a year. And if I can deliver that year on year, every year for the next 20, 30, 40 years, I've done my job. I've told the world that India is an investable market. I've told the world that you can actually find good people who know how to actually put your money in the right asset class to good use and actually give you the promised returns. So it's not just a La La Land fairy story, it is actually a deliverable idea. And that's really what we did. So every exit that we announced, every deal that we've done, every opportunity that we've gone after has exited with fantastic outcomes. And we've done that for a very long period of time. And then we will continue to do that with whatever investments that we have on our book. We'll continue to work them till such time that we ensure that we're able to exit them, give reasonable returns to investors, and keep the confidence that we've built over the last 16, 17 years as exit specialists. And that's what we're tagged as.
Wow. And this brings to my next question. India's real estate sector is projected to hit 1 trillion by 2030. And you're launching a 2,000 crore land funding target, 30% IRR aggressive, even by Indian alternative standards. I mean, what is your plan?
So, something has changed in the last 3-4 years. India was a very defensive country for a very long time. Our bilateral trade relations with many countries were not that strong. Our spend was largely, if you saw the budget, the spend was largely on discounts, on SOPs, on freebies, on subsidization for the underserved industries, people, sectors, etc. And a lot of the money went into feeding bleeding public sectors. All of that has stopped. Today, the union budget is squarely focusing on infra build, on growing the economy to for the next generation, on creating the largest footprint of roads, ports, highways, hospitals, healthcare, education, and so on and so forth. Now, when you see that, you know that there is a capability for us to be part of this journey in multiple ways. What happens because of that is as road networks expand, and you have the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, you've got Mumbai 3 in the making, you've got huge connectivity now to a place like Alibag, you've got now the Samruddhi Expressway, which is taking you to places like Nagpur and Nasik, which otherwise were inaccessible or people even didn't go and do business there for a long time. It has made Pune almost now the twin city of Mumbai and getting accelerated. So when that happens, and when urbanization happens, what it does is it actually unlocks a huge amount of opportunity for creating peripheral regions, for creating new cities. Any development needs land as the fundamental idea, and therefore, if you can actually create a very, very superior, clean land bank, which can help develop warehousing, data centers, industrial parks, townships, plotted developments, villa developments, then you've really created a very large multiplier opportunity. Because the largest constraint, even for example, the warehousing guys who I've worked with for the last 10, 15 years, has been that they could not go beyond a few million square feet in 10 years. They do more than that in a year in a small country like Singapore. Because land is the biggest issue. How do you get 50 acres of land, 100 acres of land? For a country as vast as ours, it's impossible to find 100 acres of clean land. And I said, that's the sector we understand. So it's now unto us to be able to unlock land value, be able to bring this as an asset class to all of these different opportunities, including warehouse, industrial, data centers, commercial, etc. And that creates a large multiple. So we saw credit as the first frontier of transition way back in 2007-8 when there was no private capital. Today now enough private credit has come. So we've created that market, we've brought a number of global players, it has now become a mainstream investment, we see enough people doing private lending and private credit. And so therefore, we are not able to create any large change there. We're now just part of the same ecosystem that we created 17, 18 years ago. So the next frontier of change will now come from land banks. Okay. So when you have the outer ring road of Pune getting built, and suddenly Pune will be accessible from one point to the other in 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
15 minutes. There are 8 interchanges. The moment you hit the outskirts of Pune and you hit the outer ring road, you'll be able to go from there to Magarpatta or to go to the airport or to go to Hinjewadi in 15 minutes.
Wow.
Because you have a high-speed corridor around the city being built. You don't have to actually go to the city anymore. So when you see that kind of infrastructure coming, and you have these nodes, and you have these land banks which are getting created, that's really when the urbanization will happen. People will not necessarily now have to go to the heart of the city, or go into Hinjewadi, or go into Kharadi to build it. Because accessing that through the city is tough. The city will start developing outside of the city, on the peripheral area. And that's really where you need that infra build. Where you need somebody working in an IT park to be able to work there, go to his house in 15 minutes, from there go to the airport in 15 minutes, from there go and drop his kid in 15 minutes to school, without having to traverse through the city. So that's where land value getting unlocked is very important, and that's something we need to do to be able to create the next frontier of value creation for our country in this space. So of course that makes it a very interesting idea.
And you're also planning to deploy 8,000 crore in Dubai over the next 18-24 months. That's an enormous commitment. And what makes Dubai attractive right now versus India?
So I think we're in the best 2 places in the world, India and UAE.
Yes.
And I think that's where we are so blessed to be able to accelerate our businesses on 2 frontiers. UAE is already a $750 billion real estate market. India is roughly at $350-400 billion. And while India is looking to become a $1 trillion real estate market by 2030, and effectively by 2047, real estate will become one of the largest asset classes in the GDP at roughly about 14-15%. So when you're looking at 2030 and you see India at 1 trillion, UAE will be 2 trillion. So now you're addressing a $3 trillion market. As such a small country having the ability to do $2 trillion worth of assets. It's already at $1 trillion now next year. So that is a very unique opportunity because it is a market which has got the capability to deliver, but it has never developed as a financial market. It has never developed as a banking market. It has never developed as a capital market. When you see that, and you see there's so much money coming from all over the world, from the European region, from UK for sure,
yes,
from China, from Russia, from US, from India, from all Asian countries, because this is now the new melting pot. I saw UAE and Dubai becoming the new London. What London was 20 years ago, when AIM came, when LSE came, people went to list in London, people went to do banking in London. I did that when I was investing out of London. And I saw that going away. And I'm seeing now this region becoming the new hub for the EMEA region. So anybody in Europe, Middle East, Africa, West Asia wants to do business, they will necessarily come to the UAE. So I said, we have seen global financial systems. We know how to financialize real estate, how to get the best product for an investor inside the real estate economy. And said, therefore, we need to be there. We did that for our country, we've done that for other countries, let's do it here. Because when money comes, what are they going to do? They're going to wait outside the developers don't say, take my money. That's not smart. You need to go through a manager. You need to go to somebody who's able to structure it, create a downside protection, ensure that there are proper checks and balances, ensure that your money is ring-fenced, that the developer does not misutilize it.
Yes, true.
So therefore we said this is a great opportunity for us to be there. And again, Dubai is an extension of Mumbai. People
Absolutely.
joke saying it's the cleanest city of India.
Yes.
So, well, maybe it is, maybe it is not. But again, it is a very large Indian diaspora.
Yes.
65-70% of the expats are Indians. So now effectively you're going into another Indian economy and trying to take what you've learned globally and in India, because you've had such great regulators in SEBI and RBI and others to be able to actually use those templates to apply it in the UAE. So clearly that became our next frontier for growth, and I'm very happy that we got it at the right time post-COVID, because that's when the markets opened up. We were right there in the face of that opportunity. We've scaled in the last 2 years. And honestly, $1 billion is not a very large target in a 2 trillion market, right?
Absolutely. And we are seeing, so many Dubai homes and so many advertisements all across the globe now, and especially in India. There's so many investors, I think they're interested in investing in Dubai. So
yeah, it's not a big target. And again, the market is very deep.
Yes.
It's delivering close to $300 billion worth of homes a year. So it's a very large amount of growth story, and we are happy to be at the forefront of that opportunity. So yeah, it's still a small drop in a very large ocean at $1 billion.
I'm sure, but you are doing great. That's for sure. And also you have, regularly appeared on CNBC, Bloomberg and Economic Types on topics like affordable housing, RERA and union budget implications. What's the biggest misunderstanding the media and of course the general investors have about Indian real estate right now?
So I think people have been very defensive about real estate as an asset class because they found it very illiquid in the past. The people have got stuck for large sums of money in developmental projects. They've got stuck in certain land banks because of legal or disputed issues. People have not been able to exit in time, and their monies have been stuck in multiple other fund managers. So generally there's been a bit of skepticism about investing in real estate as an asset class. Fortunately, I think that's changing in this current scheme of things. We've seen a number of strong developers getting listed, and the markets have done well in terms of giving them a thumbs up and subscribing to those issues. So I think for the first time, the capital markets and the real estate markets are converging to agree that this is a good asset class to be, but of course with the right players. I think that's an important part. So the challenge still remains is to move the mainstream investors, the mainstream capital markets into alternatives, because clearly their faith on listed equities or on the mainstream capital markets has been very large. Though it is a known fact that real estate is one of the largest creators of jobs. It's one of the largest aggregators of the economy. It's one of the largest sectors within the GDP. The way it is getting built is now in the hands of the most capable people. Gone are the days when any mom and pop shop or grade B, grade C guy could get money and do their jobs. So despite that, I think some traditional mindsets are still to move their opinion and their vote in favor of the sector, and that makes it hard. Also, what makes it hard, Rupali, is that global capital has lost too much in India. We don't see too much money coming from global markets to this sector. You'll see it coming in financial services and banking. You'll see it coming in technology in a very big way. You'll see it coming in infra development. But to find money for real estate from global investors is very tough. Because they've had suboptimal experiences. Because somehow at that time when they were dealing with the country, they were dealing with people who were not mature, people who were not seen that much capital or done so much work. They were trying to back those organizations which were not strong enough to hold that kind of capital and deliver on it. So I think that obviously is a little bit of a challenge that we're trying to overcome now with the global presence, is that this is a new India, this is a new opportunity, this is a new landscape which is now being built by the most capable, professional and competent people under very strong regulatory frameworks. And I'm hoping that that will change with time, that India gets to see a significant pie of global allocation to the sector than it ever has.
So Dr. Goenka, I also want to know, you mentioned that people were very skeptical about investing in India. If you could elaborate on that.
So in the previous, I would say, era, because it almost seems that a decade is an era in real estate.
Yes.
There were two challenges. The first was there was no clarity of policy. I could bring in money, but I did not know how to take it out.
Yes.
It was impossible for me to pull out money, even when I wanted to, because there was no way you could actually go and tell your authorized dealer or bank that I need to remit the money. Because say, oh, hold on, really? Why? And they say, oh, but have you got RBI approval? I'm like, really? I didn't know that I need to go to the central bank to get approval to take my money out. And then there were these hoops after hoops, and then taxation after taxation, and there was so much lack of clarity as to how I'm going to take my money out and how much I'm going to end up paying to even get my money out of the country. I think that has significantly changed, and this whole creation of GIFT City as an economic zone or as a zone which can allow global capital to come seamlessly invest in India or invest out of India, I think has created a very huge game changer when it comes to actually playing the economy with global capital. So that wasn't available. People came through Mauritius and said, oh really, you're through Mauritius? Shouldn't I be taxing you double, or shouldn't I be blocking your money? I'm like, why? Oh, you came through Luxembourg? Oh really, we don't have a treaty with Luxembourg. Should we be taxing you full in India and then again you please pay, end up paying taxes back at home? Like really? I have to pay now double the tax? So a lot of that confusion really dampened the spirit of global capital. Also, there was a lot of lack of clarity on development rules. Every developer could decide how much FSI they have.
Yeah.
Suddenly you had somebody in the same vicinity building a 10-story structure, and some saying, you know what, you're an idiot, I can do 30 stories in the same plot. Because you could effectively manipulate systems. And then everybody decided whether a 1,000 square feet home was actually to be sold as 3,000 square feet or 800 square feet. And nobody knew what is loading factor. And they said, oh, by the way, your balcony is also part of your home, and your lift lobby is also part of your home, and things that you can't even see or touch or feel are also part of your home.
Like the carpet area and
there's no concept of carpet area, right? Everything was saleable area, super built up area.
Yes.
And like, what is that? So everybody could get conned into believing whatever was being told.
True.
And so capital didn't know how to underwrite a deal. Are you actually going to sell 1 million square feet, or are you actually going to sell 500,000 square feet? Nobody knows. There are no rules. So a lot of that has changed. I think the uniformization of policies, of principles, of development rules, of the way capital can come and exit, of taxation in a very big way, the pass-through structures being awarded, I think that has created a very new paradigm for global capital to actually have a lot of certainty and predictability about outcomes, which was absolutely missing in the bygone era. I think the second piece is that having gone through some weak players and now realizing who can actually handle money also helps decide who's the right partner. We are seeing global funds, including Japanese, now partnering with very strong players. People from Singapore or the US partnering with very strong players. We've seen funds like Blackstone and Brookfield back strong developments and do REITs with them. So I think today it's a very clear divide between the big boys and the small boys, or the non-players and players. And I think that's very important as well, because that deciphering means you know who to partner with and how to play the big game with whom. So I think that has obviously changed in a big way. And then lastly, it was a very shallow market. Nobody in their lives had built more than 5 million square feet.
Yeah.
And suddenly you give them money to build 50 million square feet. Who's going to construct? Where are you going to build? Have you ever done more than 1,000 homes at a time?
Experience matters.
Nobody had that capacity. Today we have built tremendous capacity. Today we are doing 100 million square feet of office space a year. It's become the largest commercial office market in the world. I couldn't have imagined that. Nobody could have imagined that. That GCCs will become such a large play. Today data centers with less than 1 gigawatt is accelerating to 7 gigawatts. 700%. It's amazing. We're seeing warehousing explode. We're seeing senior living coming in. We're seeing co-working and co-living, getting developed. Student housing getting developed. We're seeing integrated townships, which are smart cities, EV operated. Completely IoT based. AI enabled. All of these are some amazing changes. How technology, scale, and capital are intermingling today for the first time into a boring asset class like real estate.
Wow. Amazing. So you also said that we don't chase trends, we anticipate them and prepare for them. So give me a specific example of a trend Nisus anticipated before the market caught up.
Yeah, I mean that's been our hallmark in a lot of ways, Rupali. When I started India, as I said, we created the first credit product, and there was no NBFC, there was no private credit, and there was very clearly the need of the hour. And suddenly, from doing the first $100 million, that market exploded to become $5 billion.
Yes.
So that was a trend we caught on very early. Similarly, when we did the first REIT styled product, there was no REIT regulations, came in 2014. Finally, REITs launched in 2019. But we knew there would be an opportunity, and we started to create that product. Likewise, when banks and NBFCs fell, there was a lot of mayhem on the street, a lot of bloodbaths, because large amount of loan pools were becoming bad, and the government needed them to get taken over, whether it was ILFS portfolio, whether it was DHFL portfolio, whether it was other asset portfolios, they all got sold. And we realized there's a huge opportunity in distressed assets, because clearly these are good projects but stuck with bad banks or bad lenders who don't have the money because they themselves are insolvent. And so said, can we do rescue financing? And we did that. We did special opportunities fund, and we started doing mass scale rescue financing, and we got joined by a number of players, including asset reconstruction companies, saying, wow, this is great, this is exactly what we like, do more of it. So we started doing that. Likewise, UAE, today hearing so much of it. We started in 2021 when people didn't realize that UAE is going to explode. We were right there. We set up a shop. We started building the ecosystem. We got banks to starting to partner with us, and we went live in 24 before the markets even realized what's happening. We're already in the face of it. So yeah, we've kept on doing things where we believe the market will eventually culminate to where the growth story is going to go.
Amazing. And Amit, you also always say that Nisus is a great place to work at, and of course the company to work with. And you've also been awarded with a lot of renowned Economic Times, Z Awards, and many, so I want to understand that what makes you different as a leader from the others, and any piece of advice to our budding entrepreneurs.
See, organizations like to be prescriptive. They like to tell you what to do and what not to do.
Yes.
And that's one of the journeys or battles that I've had all my life, is I don't want to do what you tell me. I mean, of course, I've been a born rebel. That's a different matter. But I want to do what I really like. I really want to do where I think the opportunity lies. I really want to exert 24/7. It's okay if I work 100 hours a week. It's okay if I don't go home. But I really want to do what I really think makes sense. And I need to be convinced about it. So if I can give the same freedom, if I can give the same amount of capability, the same amount of opportunity to everyone that works with us, and be part of a family and work as a family. What makes me very proud, Rupali, is that even people who work with me and have gone and to bigger platforms, because they've learned so well, they've done so well, they've sunk themselves so deep into the sector and created such immense skills for themselves that they get so overvalued, which I can't afford to pay sometimes, and then they do so well. But they still keep in touch. In fact, there's some alumni club going on where people actually interact with each other. We were buddies 10 years ago, let's get together, let's do. And it makes me so proud, because that's the family that gets created when you actually work together, when you dig deep, when you see blood and sweat together, when you actually see failures and successes together. And it's all part of our journey, and everything is great. There's no problem if you fail, and there's no extraordinary idea if you succeed, because it's all part of two shores of the same flow.
Sure.
And so we celebrate successes, we celebrate failures, we celebrate everything that happens in our life. We celebrate the capability of people to do what they really want in the way they want, because all I can do is be an enabler, be a guide, be a mentor if required, be a friend if required, be a support system when required, because that's all I think I should be doing. Lead when required and back off when not required.
True.
And let others take the charge ahead. So I think that creates the ability for people to actually rise above themselves, do better things than what they were able to do or allowed to do in the past, expand their horizons. I never allow people to only do one job. I said, why are you not doing marketing? Why are you not doing sales?
Wow.
Why are you not into finance? Why are you not understanding regulations? Why don't you see how a court matter is getting fought? So expanding the scope of work, expanding the horizons, expanding the knowledge base, having a 360-degree view of things, and not just being very siloed about your job or about your opportunity, creates wholesome leaders, create wholesome professionals. It allows them to therefore induct new people and make them also capable and wholesome, and bring them into an ecosystem where they can expand themselves in areas that they never thought they will actually do well. Because when you study something, you never know whether that's exactly what you want to be.
True.
Right? You may be studying commerce and then say, but I'm good at mass comm.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, sure, please do mass comm for me.
Yeah.
Please do media for me. And so when you allow people to explore themselves, exert themselves in multiple functions, and you realize, oh, but they're clicking better here.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you forget finance and do media for me?
Wow.
And when you can do that, you're building professional acumen and strength, and you're unlocking value for everyone. And that's really what has kept us together, and that's what makes us a good place to work, as a group.
I'm sure the entire, the entire bunch of people they work with, you are truly lucky. I mean, such a great mentor that you are.
I'm a tough taskmaster too, I can tell you that.
Of course, I am sure about that now after interacting with you for such a long time. I also want to know, so when you are about to recruit a new person, in your office, what is that one quality that you look at?
I wouldn't say one, but I would say three things. First is integrity. Hard to check. But a few quick questions can tell you whether it's going to work or not.
Yes.
And that's a go, no go for me. The second is the ability to learn. Somebody who comes with a very high opinion about themselves that I know it all is possibly the dumbest person in the room.
True that.
So enthusiasm to learn is very important.
Yes.
And third is an undying need to work hard.
True that.
I understand work-life balance. It doesn't exist for me, but I understand it. But even in that, when you're at work, you got to be bloody at work.
Absolutely.
You got to be 20. At that time, you got to do the best that you can. You got to make every minute count. And if you're not that, then it doesn't work for me. When you're not in office, by all means, put 100% in what you're doing.
True.
Either with the friends or with the family or in social causes. But if you're at work, then you put more than 100% at work. And if you can't do that, it doesn't work. So I think these three things are the most important check boxes for me.
So I think it's more like skill can be taught, not the will. So if you're willing to work, definitely I think sky is the limit for you. And that's what I think being a mentor, you probably want your people to have hands-on practice on everything possible in, of course, the arena itself. And then you never know who is excelling in that particular stream. Great. And any piece of advice to the budding entrepreneurs especially in finance?
I think first, forget the get-rich-quick idea. Everybody wants to be a billionaire or a millionaire overnight.
I know.
Everybody wants to be an influencer and become a millionaire overnight. I think a lot of these shows are also inspiring people maybe the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Suddenly you've got Beast Games. Everybody wants to be the Beast or be part of Beast Games. I don't get it. Maybe I'm too old school for that. But the only thing that matters, honestly, is hard work.
Yes.
And without getting cowed down. People take ego too quickly on themselves.
Yes.
And there's, of course, a difference between pride and ego. And I think you should have neither of them. Neither pride nor ego in the first phase of your career.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what grunt work you're doing. You can never say, oh, I can't do this. Because the greatest professionals, the greatest leaders I worked with, people who've built economies, not companies, who built countries, have actually been loaders, have been chaiwalas, have done pretty much everything that was needed for them to do at that point without having ego or pride. Because the pride is in the work you're doing, not what you're doing.
True that.
The ability that you can actually do something and you have capable mind, body and heart itself is a big blessing. And so now trying to silo that and saying, oh, by the way, my mind, body and heart cannot do 90 out of 100 things makes it very, very, very limiting. So I think first that certainly is accept whatever comes your way and do the best at it. The second thing I always believe is having a strong memory and the ability to create relations. I think today the entire media and electronic engagement has made our retention powers very, very small.
Yes.
People don't want to do math. They don't want to learn vocab. They don't want to learn people's names.
Yes.
They don't get interested in their history. They don't want to learn history.
Yeah.
I think that keeps the engagement with the universe very shallow. And the only way to deepen it is to deepen your recall, which is your memory, and build relationships. Because the only thing that has stood the test of time for success is a relationship. People deal with people they know, not the best, but people they trust.
True.
And to build trust, you need to build that relationship. So I think that's very important. See, your net worth is going to be your network.
Yes.
So if your network is shallow, do not expect to be rich. The internet is not going to make you rich. You have to build trust. You have to create a network. You
Yes.
have to know people who love you and are going to stand with you no matter what. I think that's the second most important. And third, never stop learning and challenging yourself. You say, oh, I can't do accounting. Oh, I can't do math. Oh, I don't like engineering. Oh, I don't like media. I don't like this. The day you say, I don't like it, that's exactly going to be your reason for your pitfall.
True that.
So the day you say, I'm blind to this, that blinder is going to be your accident zone. So keep your vision and your mind alert at all times. Learn areas specifically that you don't like.
Yes.
Challenge yourself to do things that you don't like, because that's going to be your handicap or your way out of your handicap.
Amazing. I mean, whatever you've said is truly something that, you know, the new minds or the budding entrepreneurs should learn from. Just not the entrepreneurs, but the people who are aspiring to be somebody just like Mr. Goenka. Yeah, and something to, you know, who wants to bring a change, not just in his life, but in the people who are connected to him and the entire world, of course. So yeah, it was an absolutely great session with you. It was truly
Rupali.
an honor to, you know, have an interaction.
Such a joy speaking to you.
Absolutely.
Your energy is very effusive.
Thank you so much once again. It was really great.
Thank you so
having
much
you.
for having me here.